It's 2009 and moral choice systems are all the rage. Good or evil, Paragon or Renegade, Hero or Infamous. You know, the bland old days. There was some serious excitement about these back then. Games just doubled in hours of fresh content, and managing your karmic alignment was a new mechanic for developers to play with. Players would get upgrades and dialogue options for staying true to a karmic path, serving a narrative excuse for implementing some of these light RPG elements. But there's a reason that these fell out of favor. Moral choices wound up not being real choices. Instead, they wound up being exactly one choice. And if we're being honest, it was always the same choice. How seriously am I going to take this game? Because the righteous path always feels like the real story, and the psychopath route always feels like an excuse to let loose after playing with an arm tied behind your back. These moral choice systems are not about giving the player choices. They're tools meant to reward you for playing the game correctly. So what if I told you that the 2009 video game Infamous tells a story about the moral choice system that it's named after? Now, it doesn't do it perfectly, or even brilliantly. Maybe a little bit brilliantly, but hear me out. Cole is a bike messenger that knows parkour because apparently that was part of the job description. The game opens after a package delivery gone wrong, blowing up a few blocks of fictional Empire City, and our hero wakes up at the heart of Ground Zero with the power to arc electricity at will. Terrorists are blamed for the explosion, residents of the city are infected with a plague seemingly as a consequence of that explosion, and Empire City is put under quarantine. Our first real action with Cole is to climb this tower to free a crate of food dropped from the sky by a government plane. And then we have our first choice, whether or not to share. Up until this point, we have absolutely no reason not to. Cole and his buddy Zeke have been hanging out on a roof this whole time, and Zeke's clearly not starving. Conversely, the people of the city seem pretty desperate, and they're thankful when you get the food down. This is why I say that your only choice is whether or not you take this game seriously. You can choose to shock some people, but it's plainly infamous. Regardless, the choice that you make here decides your karmic destiny. Cole's powers get stronger as he trends towards the direction of hero or infamous, and backpedaling only makes him weaker. So even when you're faced with getting goop sprayed in your face, you'll do it so that you don't lose the progress that you've made on your karma. In a sort of ludonarrative symbiosis, Cole is experiencing the same incentives. If you go the hero path, people will celebrate him and take pictures. They plaster posters featuring him as a beacon of hope in a city with none. The more good Cole does, the more the people of Empire City revere him, and thus further incentivizing him to do the right thing. To betray that would be to give up on the reputation that he worked so hard to build. But on the other hand, being, well, a dick also comes with incentives. When the man on TV accuses him of the terrorist attack, the people reject him and start throwing rocks. If Cole responds, they'll stop and run away. But the further Cole strays into outright villainy, the more the civilian population agitates him further. Stopping to heal someone on the sidewalk carries no benefits because the people are still gonna hurl rocks at him. Cole's choice to do the right thing here, or the wrong one, comes with enormous consequences. Namely, every choice that comes after. And in both karmic paths, the love of his life dies as the consequences of those choices. So let's talk about Kessler. Kessler is Cole. From the future. In the future, a superpowered monster known only as the Beast destroys all of human civilization. With similar electrical powers as Cole, Kessler could have stopped the Beast early on, but he neglected to do so in order to stay with and ensure the protection of his wife Triss and his two daughters. But in the end, he loses all of them to the Beast. With nothing left, Kessler uses his latest power to travel back in time and turn Cole into the hero that he wasn't. And the entire game gains new context when you replay it after knowing this. Which you'll probably do, because you have this whole other karmic alignment to follow. Brilliant, Sucker Punch. Absolutely brilliant. This was the brilliant part. What I'm really interested in talking about, though, is how Kessler turned Cole into the hero that he wasn't. Kessler sets off the explosion that gave Cole his powers. He's the one that gets the man on TV to call Cole a terrorist, turning the public against him. It's Kessler's troubled relationship with Sasha and his decision to overthrow Alden Tate's father, Richard Tate, that gives Cole two of his antagonists. It's Kessler's offer to give best friend Zeke powers that exposes his jealousy. And it's ultimately Kessler who dangles Cole's love from a rooftop and forces him to watch her die. Kessler wants to force Cole to an extreme where he's not held back by anything. And he does this by slowly escalating the stakes. If Cole makes the decision to share food in the first choice, Kessler calls on him to double down on that by not responding when those same people call him a terrorist. Had Cole made the opposite decision, Kessler would orchestrate the same scenario. But this time he would expect Cole to attack anyone who so much as looked at him funny. Playing as the good guy, Cole has to roll with each punch and accept each sacrifice because that is the identity that he has chosen. And if he keeps making the choice to be the good guy, eventually, he will be a hero. Playing as, again, a dick, Cole has to go further and further to respond to the people that challenge him, pushing away everyone that he cares about. Kessler could have gone back in time and just killed Triss, but he doesn't. Instead, he pushes Cole incrementally towards heroism or infamy. Whatever Cole comes out the other side will either be powerful enough or heroic enough to handle the Beast. It wasn't the love for Triss that held Kessler back. In fact, it's his love for Triss that drives him to go back in time and orchestrate this whole set of scenarios for Cole. It's the one thing that he took with him through time, that picture of his wedding day, with Zeke as his best man. He had to push Cole far enough to be willing to sacrifice what he cared about for the good of others, or he had to rip those things away from Cole so that he would have nothing to stand between him and the Beast. Now, it's not all perfect, and some of this could have been executed a little bit better. For one, Zeke is a scumbag.
Dwight's dead, Zeke. Someone really messed him up.
Oh, man! His sister's gonna flip out when I tell her that. Well, hell, you should find the guys who did it. I could play off that angle, maybe. Come on, man, I need this.
There's something deeply wrong with you, Zeke.
Yeah, I'm thinking that you forgot about that scene. Second, Triss doesn't get a lot of screen time, and she spends a lot of it angry with Cole. We don't get to spend a lot of time with her character like we do with Zeke. So when the climax of the game comes around and you have to choose between 8 Doctors and Triss, I don't really reel over this choice so much. She also turns out to be on whatever roof that you don't go to. Now, it'd be one thing if she turned out to be on the roof with the Doctors if you were karmically evil, and the roof alone if you were karmically good, but her position is in some sort of quantum entanglement with the building that you climb. Spooky action at a distance. And third, the karmic choices that you make should be given a better sense of escalation. Your choices should start to impact the characters more. For example, none of your choices negatively impact Zeke. There was a missed opportunity here to push these characters away more, by choosing to do the heroic thing out of obligation, or by making those characters feel guilty when the bad choices that Cole makes hurt others at their expense. Your first choice asks Cole to screw over a bunch of people, and the consequences for the karmically bad choices don't really escalate beyond that. Although, you do turn the sky red. So inFAMOUS argues that your choices influence your reputation, but more ambitiously, it argues that your reputation influences your choices. It's a feedback loop such that you find yourself kind of locked into the choices that you made long ago. inFAMOUS emphasizes this through its mechanics by giving you sweet upgrades for reinforcing the reputation that you already have, and by taking those upgrades away if you go against your established brand. At the end of the game, as a hero, Cole describes his powers as a burden that he has to shoulder for the rest of his life. So it's kind of silly to hear Cole, the same Cole who has been a hero for the entire game, also consider this nasty option aside with the one that he's obviously going to go with. But in every one of these choices, we see the action that we would have taken had we garnered the opposite reputation. Kessler represents the third choice that Cole could have made. The choice to do nothing, to have no reputation, and thus no obligation and expectations. Another face in the crowd counting on others to step up. After all, the risk of making the wrong choices, and making the world worse, and the burden of making the right ones, and the costs that come with that. Why would you ever choose to stick your neck out? But Kessler gives the best reason of all. He was the man who lost everything, surrounded by people who lost more. There was a time when he could have stepped up and fought on behalf of the people who couldn't. And he didn't. And so he's willing to go back in time and take everything from Cole that restrained him from acting when he still could. Kessler recognized his ability to make a difference. He recognized it as a burden. He recognized it as a risk. But he finally recognized the necessity that he act. That everything that he could lose was not an excuse to run from the fight. The belief that things will work out if you hang back and let the real heroes deal with the problem was not an excuse to run from the fight. No, he had to act because he was able. And this is the lesson that Cole laments on in the ending when you've taken the game seriously.
The gift of these powers will be my burden until the day I die.
And it has to be this way. Cole could have stayed on the roof with Zeke and done nothing, but these powers give him the strength to stand up for the people of Empire City. He didn't ask for this power, but now that he has it, he has no choice but to wield it responsibly. Or you could reject that crap and turn the sky red. But when this is the world that you stand to create, is that really a choice? Thanks for watching.